Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Brujo 101 with Martin and Thanya, a.k.a. Ashe.
Only to Martin. Hi everybody.
¿Cómo
Welcome
estás?
Back. Good.
And we have a special guest here with us. Thank you for joining us. We have Mr. Steve Hernandez. Steve, ¿cómo estás, bro? How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. Thank you for joining us. Where you at?
I'm in Los Angeles. We live right off of Melrose in Normandy.
Oh shit, you're right down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're in Culver City.
Well, that's not right down the street now, is it, Martin?
Well, I mean, you know, relatively speaking.
It's LA.
It would take me an hour to get to your house. Okay.
Yeah, that's that is 14 miles could turn into 2 hours really quick in LA with the traffic, which is freaking bananas, man. It's crazy. COVID's over and traffic is back to what it used to be.
But I do love Culver City. It's beautiful. I don't know how you get any work done. Whenever I go over there, I'm like, I would never leave here. I would just hang out at the beach in these restaurants. You're very lucky.
Yeah, no, it's well, dude. Melrose is is no joke either, dude. That's like the mecca for freaking art.
Yes, and I remember growing up. I'm from West Covina, so I remember growing up 20 years ago. And like coming down here to go school shopping, and like buy new pair of Docs and get all that kind of shit. So I remember if you would have told me 20 years ago that I would be living off of Melrose, I would have said there's no way in hell. So I am grateful to be here. It is nice. It is crazy to think about.
Yeah, they had that show that was super popular, Melrose Place, and remember that shit?
Of course, yeah. I watched the first, second season, Melrose Place, all white people. I think there was one. The Mexicans were nowhere to be seen in Melrose Place. Yes,
they were doing the gardening. That was it.
They were behind the scenes.
It's horrible that's the only way that we watched people for a very long time. I mean, there's been leaps and bounds that have been made. I know there's a lot of people that still shit on Hollywood for not providing opportunities, but the reality is that with technology being what it is, holy shit, we can create our own fucking opportunities now, which is fantastic. I mean, look, we're doing this. Nobody would have given us this show, 20, 30 years ago, but the fact that we have equipment, we're here and we're able to do a show to whoever the hell wants to tune in and watch it.
I 100% agree with you, and I do think the brown wave is coming still. So I know people have been talking about that for a while, but I truly believe that the tidal wave is coming. So I'm with you on that one.
No, I agree 100%. Steve, you, sir, are a super interesting person. Thanya introduced me to you a little bit, and then I checked out your here's how we get to know people now is through social media, right? It's whatever you post on there is how people will perceive you, correct? Which my social media is all over the freaking place. I mean, I'll post BDSM and then I'll post Jesus, so it doesn't matter where the heck I'm at. But you have a podcast and it's called Who's Your God, which is a very cool title, by the way. How did that come about? Who's your God? What are the topics that you cover, and why that title, brother?
I started it with my partner Amy Miller, and we're both comedians. We both grew up in the church, the evangelical Christian church, and we like to talk about God. So all we do is we interview comedians about their religious upbringing, where they are now with their religion or God or their ideas. And we ask them at the end of every podcast, if they were to start their own church, what would 3 tenets or rules or practices of that church be?
Bro, I fucking love it. Now, you grew up...
I mean, yeah, we've interviewed so many different people. Wanda Sykes, Doug Stanhope, some of the biggest names out there, but also, regular comedians just like us. And it's crazy. So many of them have some kind of religious upbringing. And then there are some that absolutely don't, and they're fine. I do think religion is one of those things that if you are not brought up within it, you just have absolutely no need for it sometimes. Most Mexicans, most Christians that are brought up into it, it's something we have to keep coming back to all the time and reassessing and figuring out what it means to us now. But there are people who, if they're not brought up with it at all, they really don't give a shit about this stuff. And it's really interesting.
Unless something tragic happens in their house and they need some sort of comfort or hope, and then they kind of seek it out,
Or they go to federal prison.
That's true, but I haven't met too many atheists that, like, as adults start looking into all I have is Christianity as an example, and then say, oh, you know what, this makes sense. It's usually something they're brought up with, because there are a lot of, forgive me for saying it like this, but I don't know how to. There are a lot of like fairy tale elements to Christianity that you have to get in your heart pretty young.
That is very, very fair. Now, you say you were brought up as an evangelical?
Yes.
You grew up as a little kid, like since you were like learning how to walk, your parents were in the church. Is that right?
I remember we were Catholic, and then when we moved to West Covina from Highland Park, we started going to, a neighbor took us to, it's called Faith Community Church. It's a mega church in West Covina. I believe they changed their name to Faith now, just Faith Church. But I started going there. A neighbor took us to VBS when I was 7 years old.
Vacation Bible School?
Grew up. Yeah, Vacation Bible School. Started going there. Grew up in that church. The church grew as I got older. I became an intern there when I graduated high school, and then I slowly became a junior high minister, the high school minister, and then the student ministries director. So I was running the college, high school, and junior high stuff.
What year was that, bro?
98, 99, 2000.
So you were there were you there from the mid 80s then, or in the 80s into the 90s?
Yes. Our original property was on Sunset in West Covina, right down the street from the old Calvary Chapel before Raul Reese moved to Golden Springs.
Raul Reese, my God, I hadn't heard that name in years, dude. I grew up Catholic as well, and I ended up in a Christian church in 1985 as a teenager.
How long were you there for?
Many years. Up until a few years ago, I was getting loaded and still, I mean, I wasn't going to church, but I was still defending the teachings of the Christian church, which was kind of like a crazy talk, But yeah, I was, so when you say Raul Reese and things like that, it just, rings so many bells. A lot of these televangelists who are now older, I remember them in their prime, like the Kenneth Copelands of the world and things like that. I remember them when they were in their prime and all the books that they were reading and all the teachings on the end times and the tribulation and the rapture. And, I remember watching the movies, the Left Behind, where, everybody's trying to get you the mark of the beast and they're chasing you around.
Thief in the Night.
A Thief in the Night. Yeah. Yes. Just scaring the shit out of you. They play it at the church on a Saturday night, and they tell you to invite your unsaved friends, you to bring them with the hope of converting them and bringing them into the fold.
Oh, that's where you would have brought me.
Absolutely.
You would have brought me.
I would have brought. Damn, that's so now you became a youth minister, it sounds like.
Yes.
Wow. I remember being in the youth group. I remember going to camp. I remember going to retreats out in Lake Arrowhead at Harmony Pines. When I first got saved, I had hair bigger than what I have now, and I just looked like this lunatic. And I everybody in the youth group knew all the songs, all the worship songs, and I didn't know any of them. And I'm just sitting there and they're all playing somebody's playing the acoustic guitar. They're all singing Jehovah Jireh, they're singing all these songs, and then they're talking about the rapture's coming and Jesus is taking everybody back, and I'm like, man, ain't no way he's taking me. I don't even know the lyrics. These fuckers know the lyrics, I'm
never gonna get in.
I'm never getting in, and it was a very, very interesting time. I was fascinated with prophecy and end times and tribulation and rapture. it was what dominated the 80s and early 90s, for sure. And I think even now, it's even bigger as time has gone by. There's way more mega churches than there was at that time.
I'd have to look into that, because I know that organized religion is like dropping as a whole. I know that there's a lot of people who are leaving the church because they know too many gay people, and they know, it's like, I can't keep defending this stuff. I know so many Catholics. So I know most organized religion people are fleeing from that generally. But dude, everything you just said, we're speaking the same language, man. I know all of that stuff. And I remember being terrified of the rapture. I remember one time, one of the big earthquakes in the early 90s, I remember I was sleeping in my room, and the earthquake happened, and it busted a transformer outside. And so there was like electricity going in the sky. And so I remember waking up and I saw the electricity going. And I really remember thinking like, oh man, like God's coming back right now and I'm still a virgin. Like I was so mad. But
Are you talking about the Northridge quake in what, 93, 94?
Yeah, it's got to be one of those, because I was in high school. So it must have been like, I remember seeing the lightning outside and thinking, never even had sex. God's coming back.
Done.
Oh, well, I guess we'll go. Yeah, I guess I'll go to heaven, but I would like to have some sex.
So at what point, if you're so involved and you're like teaching people, right, and you're really like doing conversion at that point, right? Like come to the church, at what point do you start disengaging with it? What leads to you not being part of the church?
I think I was at that point, I was asking so many questions about the Bible, especially most evangelical Christianity. It's like based on, all they care about is that you have to defend the Bible. It's the inerrant word of God. It's perfect no matter what. So I was just seeing too many holes in the Bible to understand that like this doesn't make sense. In my heart, the idea of hell always really bothered me, because the Bible calls God the perfect father. And I know there's no perfect father that would punish their kids for eternity. I just knew these things in my heart. And also, and this is more important, I was starting to like drink sometimes by myself, and I was having sex with my girlfriend at the time, which is like all normal stuff, but not when you're a youth minister. You can't have sex with your girlfriend. We weren't married yet. So I just seen it happen enough times where eventually like a person gets caught doing those things. And I didn't want to go out like that. I felt I was too young. I was 22, 23 years old. And I was like, I'm struggling in my walk. So I should do the right thing and step down and figure out how I feel about these things.
God hates a lukewarm Christian, bro. You're either in or you're out, or he'll spit you out of his mouth if you're lukewarm. He'll spit you the fuck out, you backsliding motherfucker.
I think I found your like long lost relative over here for you, Martin, and you have like so many similarities growing up in those kind of churches, But what's the difference? So educate me. What's the difference between an evangelical church? Because I went to South Hills High School. That's funny that you're from West Covina. I went there. So I remember there was a lot of people going to Calvary Chapel. I remember, but what's the difference between regular Christian church and evangelical Christian church? What do you guys speak in tongues? What do you guys do?
When my church, when I started going there when I was younger, we were a lot more Pentecostal. And Pentecostal, when you hear that usually implies more speaking in tongues, prophecy, getting slain in the spirit, all that kind of stuff. But as the church grew and kept growing, you could tell that they kind of began to streamline it and kind of like make it a little more corporate, because that stuff is a little edgy. So it became more, and it still is now, like a Joel Osteen type of church, where we just want you to be like a successful, happy people. And, you're a good family member and all of those, all those kind of things that really don't have anything to do with the teachings of Christ. But they teach you to be a good American, basically.
A good American. Wow, what a great analogy, because that is, a big part of the God, how do I say this? A lot of people had questions of who's voting for Trump. What part of the country is voting for Trump? And you had the nationalists and you had your conservatives, of course, but you had a big portion of that demographic who is evangelical or charismatic Christian, and that is it goes hand in hand with pride in country, and we are a Christian country, and a lot of those people that were voting were people that were, dare I say, indoctrinated in the 90s at Jesus Camp. And I don't know if you've ever seen that documentary, Jesus Camp.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But those kids were in 2016 voting age. And those kids were also homeschooled. A majority of the kids that were getting homeschooled at that time were evangelical Christians. So a lot of the doctrine, not just religious doctrine, but even science that was taught to them was biblical, was based on the Bible, right? So you were getting creation versus evolution. You were getting young planet that is versus an old Earth, right? And so these kids, when you indoctrinate a child with things like that, it's hard for them to let that shit go. And that big demographic voted for Donald Trump.
Yes, absolutely. So a couple of things there. I do believe that most evangelical Christians, first off, don't know their Bible that well. They just don't. It's more of a cultural thing. And I do think, especially, when I talked about the kind of church I was brought up in and how you have to, I do think you have to intellectually disconnect to become that kind of a good evangelical Christian, because real questions pop up in your head. I remember asking people about these questions and they can't answer them. And then they tell you just have to have faith in God, or you have to trust that, that God knew what he was doing, or that God's ways are not our own. But there's a lot of stuff in the Bible where I'm like, I don't know, this seems pretty fucked up to me.
Well, that's the enemy.
God of love.
That's the enemy coming in there and tempting you to question. The enemy, not even the devil. That's the enemy.
Dude, I'm telling you.
Don't be a heathen.
You can talk to my mom right now. Yeah. That's the enemy talk. I love it. Yeah, it's all of that kind of stuff. But I think you see that intellectual disconnection then when you have Christians voting for Trump, when you have a large amount of evangelical Christians believing in the QAnon movement. There's basic answers to these things, but they refuse to go to that connection because they don't have the critical thinking that it takes to figure out, oh, this person's lying, or this would be an easier solution, because the church has taught them not to critically think.
Well, because it's magical, right? It's magical thinking. You're going to believe in this book, and it's magical thinking. For you to be, saying that all the fables that the Bible has and believing them, it's magical. It's a magical book.
Yes.
They turn water into wine. The virgin had the baby.
Now there is a lot of truth in there as well. There's proof that there was a flood on the planet. There is documented scientific proof that there was a deluge and there was a flood in the planet, yes. And that's biblically based. And there's also other accounts of it in other cultures and in other religions, not just in Christianity. You've got the Epic of Gilgamesh, that was written way before the Bible was ever written, and that also talks about a giant flood. So there are things that I think do hold water, no pun intended.
But there's no boat big enough to bring all the animals of the earth on this boat with this guy.
Of little faith.
And here, let's get the 2 chickens. Let's get the 2 ducks.
There you go. First you get the chickens, of course, because you're a santera.
The things that I'm going to need first. But come on. No one is fitting all these animals on a boat with this guy. Come on, give me a break. That's not how it went down. Maybe the DNA. Well, maybe he took DNA with him.
I love the Bible. So that's, I think, a big difference between me and a lot of people that are former evangelical Christians is I never had a problem with the Bible. I think I always understood it for what it is. I think it is art. I think it's literature. I think it's the story of a people struggling to understand life and the universe and who God could possibly be. But those people, obviously, if they wrote it 3,000 years ago, would get some things wrong. So it would not be perfect. They're trying to understand, the God in the Old Testament, the first few chapters, murders a bunch of people. The flood was God murdering a bunch of people. Now, if God is real or God is a God of love, that God would not murder people. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. But I do understand that this is people trying to figure out who God is. And so they're going to make mistakes. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's literature,
Or
it's
realistic.
art, it's them interpreting things. Yes.
Right? Because it's like not even realistic. But I mean,
Now,
it's not.
so the Nephilim, right? Which is what caused the flood, right? The Nephilim were these angels, these giant angels who started having sex with the humans and creating these giant babies, and they were intermingling with earthlings, right? Now, when you start, which is what then led to God being pissed, saying, "Hey man, what the hell are you guys doing, fucking the humans? I'm gonna wipe out this goddamn society." Now the Nephilim are also could be argued that we're an alien civilization that was on the earth, giving us all these, because you've got people that are into these belief systems, not necessarily religious people, but that they believe that we were inhabited by more intelligent beings. Who then built the pyramids, who then gave us irrigation and agriculture and all that other stuff. And you've got that belief system now, at the risk of sounding like the fucking guy from Ancient Aliens, but could it be that those civilizations that were experimenting with the Earth, and then there were battles within those different alien races that led to destruction on Earth? Now that's just
How blasphemous!
No. I mean,
how
Does
blasphemous!
it sound like the guy on Ancient Aliens? That's exactly what the guy on Ancient Aliens said.
Could it be?
I love all that shit. That's great. I love all that shit when you watch it. I think it's super fun. I don't think any of that stuff has to do with God. I do think when you talk about the flood account, almost every civilization that we discover has an account of the flood. So obviously this flood is one thing that happened, and then we get all these different interpretations, but there's no doubt that huge flood happened. I do like the idea of fucking aliens. I think that sounds dope. Any way it comes, it sounds beautiful. I don't think that's like any kind of like modern Christianity or any talk like that, but it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, those are beliefs on on people on the conspiracy theory tips on how the earth was created. Now, but again, the Bible does talk about the Nephilim, right? These angels that had come to earth and started having sex with the humans, and that's what led to God being pissed off and destroying it with the flood. You were talking about how, the angry God of the Old Testament, where it's like, oh, you're not listening? Well, fuck it. Let me send a plague. Oh, you're still not listening? Well, let me kill all the firstborns. Well, you're still not listening? Well, let me send locusts. You're still not listening? Here's this. Better fucking listen or you will be punished, which then all the blood sacrifices, which again goes hand in hand with a lot of other civilizations. You had to do a lot of offerings at the temple in order to atone for your sins, right? You did this, okay, bring me a goat. Okay, bring me a couple of freaking oxen. Okay, you did this. You got to sacrifice these animals, and this blood will purge you of your sin. There's a lot of that in the Old Testament, where then you get into the New Testament and Jesus is like, I am the final sacrificial lamb. This blood is going to atone for everybody's sins, and we're not going to need to sacrifice animals anymore. And this is the new covenant. It's the New Testament. It's the new covenant. It's the new agreement. We're done with the animal sacrifices. This is the new, all you got to do is believe that he died for you and you will be saved.
That is true, but I do want to correct you. And I think, what you just described is what people think of as modern Christianity. And that was created by the Apostle Paul.
Correct.
Jesus didn't say almost all of those things. Jesus never said any of those things that you said. The Apostle Paul did, though, and that's what we think of when we think of modern Christianity. If you ask somebody, are you a Christian? And they'll go, yeah. And I go, what does that mean to you? And they go, I believe Jesus was God or the Son of God, that he died for our sins, and that I can go to heaven now. What Christ taught was almost nothing about that. Christ came, I believe, for a completely different reason than what we talk about usually, and that was to overthrow the Roman government.
The Roman government grew because of Christ, right? The Roman government was when they didn't have religion. The Roman government had no religion at the time. Their rise to, when they really rose to power, and correct me if I'm wrong, was under Constantine, when that, therefore, after the Council of Nicaea, which is when the canon became the canon that it is, was formed there. But they had no religion per se. They had a powerful army, and the merger of that army with religion is what then led to the basically conquering the whole fucking planet. Before that, I think that what he was trying to take down was the temple and everything that was going on in the temple. The temple at that time, again, correct me if I'm wrong, was the Wall Street of the day. Nothing happened without that fucking temple and the Jews and the Pharisees. The Jews and the Pharisees are one and the same. The Pharisees were different sects. You had the Sadducees, the Pharisees, all these things that ended in C's, and they everything happened, and you had to, again, we're talking about a people that lived in the desert, and they had to bring offerings. Meat had to have been a fucking commodity. Was it the blood that they were after, or was it the meat? And the power that was happening with that temple is what he was fighting. I mean, they crucified him because he showed up flipping tables in the Jewish temples. That religion was then packaged and sold through the Romans when Peter became the first pope. And you're right, Paul never met Jesus. Paul never met Jesus, yet wrote 90% of the New Testament. This is a guy who was a high-ranking Pharisee who was decapitating people that were spreading the message of Christ. Therefore, immediately, that's a red flag as far as that what that message got diluted to being.
Yeah, I mean, you said everything right. Jesus had two enemies. They were very religious people and rich people.
Correct.
So those are who Christ came for. And oftentimes they ended up being the same people, as we see now with all these mega church pastors, which we see now, modern Christians, where they embrace capitalism fully and wholly and believe that God wants them to be rich. But that's not what Christ came for.
It's been rebranded as the prosperity gospel.
Does God want us to be poor? Does that God from the Bible want us to be poor?
I think he wants us. I think that poor and rich he's thinking beyond that. None of that stuff even matters.
You're absolutely right. So from what I understand, when the figure of Jesus was a real person, there's no doubt in my mind that man existed. Now he was hanging out with the Gnostics, right? Not agnostics, but the Gnostics, and which they were basically seeking self-awareness, self-knowledge, and being connected to that one source, right? Which it's easy to say the spirit and God. So gnosis is self-knowing, correct? And so that's this cult, or these followers that he had, they wrote a lot of what Jesus taught. None of that made it to the New Testament. Again, what made it to the New Testament were the teachings of Paul. You know, when you look at the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, every single one of them details the crucifixion, and they talk about Peter saying, I don't know that guy, betraying him and denying that he knows the Christ. They all talk about Mary Magdalene being the last one at the crucifixion. She's there when they pierce his side. She's there when they take him to the grave. She's there when they bury him. And we just celebrated Easter. She's the first person to see this risen Christ. Whether it happened or not, I'm not debating that. What I'm saying is that every single one of those Gospels names her as the first person to see this risen dude. He then tells her, go tell the others that I live, right? Which then makes her apostle to the apostle. That makes her the first fucking apostle, and she's a woman, which is insane in the Middle East now. Imagine 2,000 fucking years ago, if that's how it went down. Once Paul takes over the writings, once you look at Acts, once you look at Corinthians, anywhere else, from that moment forward, the first person that Christ appears to becomes Peter. Now, that is problematic in a lot of ways. This is the dude that denied him. This is the chick that was there from the beginning, from the end and in the beginning. We then get to know her as the whore, right? I'm sure that she had a story of who Christ was. Her story got shut down once Pope Gregory the Great wrote Homily 33, once the scriptures got translated from Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek into Latin. Once that happened, and the Pope was, and maybe I'm boring you with all this craziness, but once that happened, he made sure that we knew this woman as a whore, and therefore her message got shut the hell down immediately. And to this day, there are people that identify Mary Magdalene with the repentant whore, which nothing could be further from the truth. But you know, again, I'm sorry for going on a little rant
like,
there.
but I digress.
I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm with you on everything you're saying. I do think that the Christianity that Christ taught about was the religion of slaves. It was the religion of the downtrodden and the outcasts. So now I think it would be interpreted as homeless people, as poor people, for gay people, and for trans people. I believe that the Roman Empire took it over, and that the American Empire is just like that in that respect. And so, you know, just like when Jesus went out to the desert and the devil like tempted him and said, you could have everything in this world, you just have to bow to me. That, you know, most modern day evangelical Christians, most people are prepared to bow for an instance to have everything that comes with having a successful, rich life.
So where's your like view on like, well, first of all, I just want to say this. I cannot believe all that stuff that you were spewing right now, like about all this, the Bible, like, because I mean, I'm spiritual, right? I'm a santera. I read a lot of text, but your retention for these things for somebody who does not believe in them is crazy to me. Like the fact I was like, what? That happened? What? Okay. But where's your thought now on like religion, spiritualism? Like what do you consider? Because you obviously have a faith, right? So it doesn't seem like you're atheist. I could be wrong, but are you just not into organized religion anymore? Are you open to like, I'm sure that being brought up in the church, they are very closed off. So everything that isn't part of your church is evil. You know, I remember I had a friend in high school and she came to my house and we were having a misa. Santeria misa, and she liked it, right? So she was like, I'm gonna stay, and she was Christian. Her mom was like super hardcore evangelical Christian, right? And then her mom picked her up and she was like, oh, I'm gonna take Thanya to church with us because I came to her church. It's at her house. Jesus. In the garage. And her mom talks to dead people in there, and it was really cool. And I remember that the mom was like really mad at her, like, why did you go in there? Like, you only go to your own church. Like, you don't go to other people's churches. Our faith is correct. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go to your church now, crazy lady. So where are you at with like currently? Like where is your belief system at, like currently? What would you consider it?
And let me just add to that. Hold that thought, please. But you were teaching, and I don't want to forget this. You were teaching. You're a youth pastor. What then? You start questioning. You say, and then do you just have a split, or is it a slow separation, or is it just you're questioning, but you stayed there? Just because it's the place to be.
Like, do you resign like at a regular job? Or are you like, I'm going to resign my position?
Well, I'll tell you, it was pretty interesting. So I thought that when I quit, I was just going to like quit, but still be able to go to that church. That church was my life. I was working there like 60, 70 hours a week. I had 50 volunteer staff under me. We were doing like a bunch of different programs. I just thought, oh, I'm going to step down. I shouldn't be the leader. But because that church is a mega church and ran like a corporation, they first asked me, they said, well, we don't think you should quit, but you do need a little time off to kind of get your life right. Would you like to stay? Would you like to stay here? Or do you want to go somewhere? So I was like, I guess I'll go somewhere. And so I went to Ecuador. I worked in an orphanage for a few months, but then I came back and I was like, I still want to quit. And they were like, oh, okay, well, we'll let you quit, but we don't want you. You can't come to the church for 1 year. So they're like, come back here in a year. It'll be fine, but we don't want you to come here for 1 year. I had too much influence. The only power they really had over me was like my paycheck. And without that, who knows? I could have split the church or something. But that just sent me spinning out kind of, because that was my home. That was my family. So I think I tried to go to a couple of churches and stuff, but I really just started partying and like working a bunch of Joe jobs, liquor stores, gas stations. Then I started working at TGI Fridays in West Covina. And then I kind of just partied till I was about 30 years old. I got married, and then I started comedy a couple of years later. So I would say that, we've been doing the podcast for like 4 years. I never had a problem with God, but I was always trying to understand what it meant to me. It's funny, you talked about Martine knowing so much and recalling it. I'm sure it's because you were searching all those times, Martine. Mm-hmm. I did the same thing. I'm reading books. I'm trying to understand, what is this thing I believe? Because I felt a strong sense of God in me at all times. What that means is different at all times. But I would say that the same place that I used to write sermons from, that's where I get my jokes. It's like the same Holy Spirit is like, tells me, oh, you should talk about this, or, that same thing that used to tell me, it says, hey, you don't eat Del Taco this late, or, maybe you should use a condom tonight, that kind of a thing. But it is the same voice. I didn't think that much of it. I was never against God or anything. But I will tell you, I've been reignited in the pandemic through the Black Lives Matter thing. I would go to so many protests, and black women would speak at these things, and they would talk about a God of redemption, a God that wants justice, a God of love. And I was like, not in 20 years had I remembered, like, oh yeah, that's the God I believe in, that thing that wants to throw off the chains of the oppressed. I was like, oh yeah, I believe in that God. So the past year or so, I've been very much back into the Bible and back into Christ and what Christianity could mean to me.
That's interesting that you say it and you frame it that way, because a lot of traditional people of faith would be anti the Black Lives Matter message.
Yeah, they're morons.
Oh my God.
They don't know their Bible. That's all. They just don't know their Bible, and they don't understand that. I mean, when these modern Christians, the ones who voted for Trump and stuff, they think that you work hard, it works out for you, you pull yourself up from the bootstrings. So many times Christ, all he cared about was going after the people that have been forgotten by society, that never had a chance to pull themselves up by the bootstrings.
Well, the reality is that at that time, if you didn't have money and you didn't have the sacrifice to offer to the temple, there was no way in hell you were going to be absolved and forgiven for your sins. So it was a religion of the rich. You bought access to salvation.
Well, isn't it a religion of the rich now? Isn't religion for the rich now? Organized religion?
I mean,
like the more that you give, the more that you're exalted in the church, the more that people think that you're in higher esteem with God, the more that you're his, you're favored, you're highly blessed and favored, right? Like, isn't that what people buy into when they send money?
It's a sin to be poor in this country. People think if you're poor, you've done something to deserve that. And they'll fight tooth and nail against a $15 minimum wage. They think that you get whatever place you're in right now, you've deserved that, and you've put yourself there. So, I mean, yeah, it's the exact same thing now. That's why I do think that Christianity, the teachings of Christ, I should say, having nothing to do with him being God or rising from the dead or anything, but the teachings of Christ are more applicable today for America than at any other time before.
And where does that put you, like, for other religions? Like, what do you think of other religions? Like, or yeah, I know that it's your wife, right, who has the other podcast about astrological science, astrology, So I remember I have a cousin who is I don't know, she went to theology school. She won't even talk about, I remember being little, like in high school, and being like, oh, my sign is Aries. Don't do that. That's the devil. And I was like, what the fuck? Okay, girl. So where does that put you with other things like that of the world, secular things?
I think all of those things, everything is just metaphor. So it's all just metaphor to connect us to that. Even my wife doesn't, as far as I know, it's so funny. We talk about this stuff all the time, but she doesn't literally believe that these things, the stars say this or about that. It's that thousands of years ago, people noticed a pattern with the stars, and they kind of matched up that pattern with things that happen. That doesn't mean that this is literally anything. It just means they noticed this because of a pattern. So, yeah, I don't have to literally believe in anything. So almost everything, I think there's good stuff in it. But the problem is that whenever you want to literally believe in any religion and say that goes for everybody, you're going to find yourself in trouble usually.
The goes for yes, that I think is, there's a book by Alan Watts called Behold the Spirit, where he says, until Christianity can exist without telling people that it's the only way, we're better off without it.
It's powerful.
Yeah, no, and I would expand on that and say that goes for any religion.
I think that goes for all religion.
Correct.
I don't think it's
all
like a one size fits all is never good.
No,
it's never, and we weren't meant to all be the same. If we were meant to all be the same, we would all be the same. But obviously, we're not.
Yeah, it's one thing I really love about stand-up comedy is I think that's how people should, and I think a lot of 12-step programs teach this too. But once I started doing stand-up, you kind of learn very quickly. They tell you, don't tell anybody how to do their jokes or how to do their act. All I can do when I tell someone that is I'm just telling them how I do it. But I know that if I were to tell certain comedians to do it my way, then we lose the magic of who that person is. Through life, they got to figure out how to do it. And then when they become good, and, stand-up is great like that, is if you keep working hard at it, almost universally, you get better at it. And it's like, just lay off everyone, let everybody do their own thing, trust generally that they're trying to do the right thing, and God, whatever that means, will shape them, and their product, who they become, will be greater or more crazy than anything we could have ever shaped them to be. Life will shape them.
That's beautifully said. Now I'm gonna change gears on you here for a second. A lot of people. Again, we were talking about social media being the bar by which we measure people and say this is what this person's all about. Your bio is, I mean, the first word is married, queer, non-monogamous, and holy shit, that is so much to unpack, because you just said you're married and then you said your wife, so I'm assuming you're married to a woman, unless you're married to a dude that identifies as a woman. I don't know, but then it says queer. which is that a politically correct term to use in 2021? Ya fuck, ya toxic man. And I hope you can sense that that's sarcastic. And then non-monogamous and marriage just doesn't, it's almost like an oxymoron. I just want you to break that down as best as you can. I'm really curious as to what's going on with that. And again, you put that in your bio, which is, my bio says comedian, grandpa, guru, Reiki master. I got all kinds of shit in there. But again, it's what defines us. Is how we identify a lot of times or how we want people to perceive us is what we will put in our bios.
I also think with that bio, I don't know if anyone's told you, but your old church is not going to get you back. Like they're not going to let you come back in. They're just not.
You know what? By the way, because I like to talk about this. That senior pastor, his name is Jim Reeve. He passed it on to his son, Dan Reeve, who was my friend, and is one of the worst preachers I've ever seen in my life. So oftentimes on my podcast, I challenge him. I go, come on, Dan, you and me, let's go toe to toe. Because I know I can get more souls for the Lord than he can. Terrible preacher. He's a terrible preacher.
I'm a great, dude, I'll satarakata shanda your ass off, brother.
Well, I am all those things. I am married now. I'm queer. I've been having sex with guys for probably about 15 years now. To be fair, I've never been romantic. Well, that's not true. Okay, I don't want to. There's so much stuff once we start talking about this. But I am non-monogamous, polyamorous too. So what kind of questions do you have for that?
Well, polyamorous, people will assume that it is a way to just justify being promiscuous, right? Great book by a guy named Mystic Life. I don't know if it's a male or a woman that wrote it, but it's called Spiritual Polyamory. And it is a fascinating look at how we view monogamy and polyamory. When we think about polyamory, we think about just wanting to have sex with a lot of people, and that there's a value, that there's this high value that polyamorous people value sex above everything else, which nothing could be further from the truth. I feel that when you are in a monogamous relationship, you're okay with your partner having multiple relationships with people as long as they're not sexual. So the value on sex is greater on a monogamous relationship versus a poly relationship. That monogamous relationship is like, yeah, you can go hang out with your friends and you can have a spiritual connection, you can have an emotional connection, you can have any connection but no fucking, you motherfucker. And so therefore sex is way more elevated there. We've also been taught to look at love as I should fulfill all your needs. You shouldn't need anything from anybody else. We are a team, and you complete me, I complete you. You shouldn't look for anything else anywhere but with me, which is a super conceited thing to think of oneself as I'm enough for you. And it's also shitty to put those expectations on another human, saying fulfill my every needs, you monkey. And so those are my views on it. Now there are I know a couple who not a couple but a triad. It's a dude that's married to two women. One of them is pregnant currently. And they are super happy, and they get really judged by their lifestyle by a lot of people who have no business, throwing their opinion on it. Whatever makes you happy, as long as it's legal, fucking do it. Now you can go back to, we were talking about the Bible earlier. Polyamory existed. How many of these kings had really concubines?
Yeah,
yes.
But the concubines couldn't hook up with other people. So completely different. Like polyamory, if I'm with you, then I can hook up with whoever I want, right? Is that how it works? I don't know how it works. I'm not.
Yeah. Generally, but it's, What you did say, Martine, what you said is right, is that people, when they think of monogamy, it's never existed. It's never been that way. Through history, men have generally been able to hook up with whoever they want to without facing any repercussions. Even when you talk about the time of the Bible, there were temple prostitutes that you can go to and everything. This is all, men could do whatever they want. It's always been that case.
Yeah, it's always us getting
polyamory.
The stick, literally.
Yeah, polyamory is different, and that you that women are allowed equally to do those things as well.
But you can also, when you say that I can hook up with whoever I want, there are people in polyamorous relationships that are in committed relationships. It just means that there's more than two.
Well, no, yeah. What I'm saying is, back in the Bible, it was usually the men.
No. You said if we're in a polyamorous relationship, I can go hook up with whoever I want. But
right?
that's not always the case. There are people who are in a polyamorous
and
relationship.
Then they don't hook up with somebody,
no,
the
it's
other
just
person
them.
does.
It's just them. It's just all of them. It's more than one person in the. It's more than two people in the relationship, but they're faithful to each other.
Yeah, no.
And not all the time.
Yeah, no.
I mean, it's a very. I mean, it's. Sorry, brother. Go ahead.
Wait,
It's okay. There's every couple has every couple has different rules. Every triad or group or polycule has different rules. You say like I could hook up with whoever I want. Technically, I could hook up with whoever I want, but I practice ethical non-monogamy, so I'm like always thinking about my wife's feelings, even though my wife's not non-monogamous or anything like that. I'm always thinking about her feelings, and I'm thinking about the people's I'm hooking up with feelings. There's women who say they're okay with it, but I know they're not okay with it, that if I were to have sex with them, we would fall in love. It would become this huge fucking mess. So I have found, the older I've gotten and the longer I've practiced this, there's actually very few people I could hook up with, and that it's okay and healthy with everyone involved.
So I have a question to go back, it's more about the queer part. So did you, when you were teaching in the church, did you already know that you had feelings for men? And was that part of your exit? And because I feel like it's so villainized, right? Like, don't be gay, don't be queer, don't be, So was that part of your exit? Because, I don't know. I just think that that's usually people feel very ostracized by the church if they have any kind of homosexual, gay tendencies, whatnot.
It really wasn't, but it should have been, because when I was leaving, like that last year, that's when I did start to hook up with guys. I would get drunk, and then this was so long ago, this was before the internet kind of, or me using that, I would like call these phone lines. That's when I first started to do it. And then, I would hook up with guys, but always like very drunk and everything. And that actually continued for many years until I stopped drinking almost 3 years ago. And to be fair, I haven't really hooked up with any guys since I stopped drinking. But that's something that I want to explore once the pandemic's over, as we're opening up again. But I could say there's only been one guy that I've romantically been into. And I've swang. I've had a ton of group sex, a ton of threesomes. I've done everything like that. It's really hard for me to say that I am even bi. That's why I like to say queer, because it's kind of a weird catch-all. But yeah, that's still a big part of my journey that I haven't explored yet, that I'm very interested in exploring in the future.
You said that when you would drink, it's when you would explore that side. Were you attracted to dudes early on? When did you realize that you were attracted to dudes? Did it happen when you were exiting with that year that you started partying, or had you been attracted to them at an earlier age and you just kind of suppressed it?
That's what's so interesting, is it's even hard for me to say I'm attracted to men, because I've only had one instance in the past couple of years where I would say I'm attracted to men. I wanted to have sex with guys. I know that sounds kind of the same, but I've never like looked at a man or been around a man and say, man, I'd really like to have sex with them. I wanted to just get drunk and do this dirty thing. There's a lot of theories about what maybe that came from for somebody like myself. But I am interested, like I said, in the future, like going on a date with a guy. Although that sounds terrifying to me, I don't know how I would act, because I really just know how to conduct myself romantically with women. But I know that is something I want to explore. But it was even now, I'm having trouble saying, oh yes, I'm attracted to guys, even though I like to have sex with guys.
That you know, it's interesting. There's so much shame in that for a lot of people. You know, whether you don't even have to be attracted to a guy. Just the fact that there's guys there's somebody that'll say, wow, that dude, that's a good looking dude. It's like, well, I don't check out guys. There's the innate defense thing that just pops up immediately when that happens. Like, I remember telling somebody one time, you know, I go to this barber. This is when I used to get fades. I go to this barber, and afterwards, he has this glove that's like this massage for your head and neck and blah blah blah. And he goes, "Well, maybe he's gay." I go, "No, he is gay. He's gay." And he's like, "And you let him fucking massage your head?" And I'm like, "What the fuck, bro? He's massaging my head. He's not sucking my dick." You know, it's like what is the big fear? But there is this, you know, homophobia is very real. That the term has been used so much that I think it loses the power of what it really is. There is actual phobia in same-sex hookups from a lot of people, just beyond, you know, just how could you even hang out with that person? They're fucking gay. Oh, what are you, a fucking fag? Like, people say crazy shit like that still in 2021.
Oh yeah, and it starts really, really young. My son did a ceremony. He has to wear white for a year. So we went out somewhere and he was dressed in white. And somebody turned around and was like, "Why are you wearing white? That's gay." And my son was like, "Why is it gay?" And they're like, "Yeah, only gay guys wear white pants." Bro. And so it's like, and they're 13, 12, you know what I mean? And because my son's brought up very tolerant, I have gay godchildren, you know, he's like, that's not how gay works. Like, me wearing white pants is not gonna, you know, but it's put into you where don't act gay, don't look gay, don't dress gay, and you have all these stupid concepts.
I walk on the beach on the sand over in Santa Monica a couple of times a week, and if you go over by Montana heading towards Malibu, by between on the lifeguard tower by about 18 to the one after that one, and they don't go in order, but there's this huge section where it's almost like Boys Town. It's nothing but dudes, and they're all, you know, coupled off. They're all freaking wearing Speedos. 90% of them are fit, and just, you know, you pass by, you're like, God damn, these are some good-looking motherfuckers. It's not like I'm trying to hook up with them. It's not like I'm attracted to them. But as a freaking rational human, I can say that's an attractive motherfucker. That's a pretty motherfucker. You know, where now you say that around some people and they're like, "What are you fucking gay, bro? You want fucking suck dick, bro?" Which is freaking bananas to me that you can't even say that's a good looking dude, that's a good looking chick. You know, just like there's good looking women, there's women that don't look hot. There's dudes that don't look hot. And there's dudes that, you know, but yet there's this phobia to say that.
Well, especially I think in like the Latino and Black like culture still. I think we're dehumanized Blacks and Latinos so much that we try to fight for what we understand our masculinity to be so hard that ends up looking a certain way. Well, we all know that Greek and Roman warriors, some of the biggest warriors in the past, all had gay lovers and all that kind of thing. For me, being queer and polyamorous, I think they're all so kind of intertwined, and I'm talking about freedom. I'm talking about the freedom to experience life however it comes. If I like this thing, great. If I want to get fucked in the butt and that brings me the most pleasure in this instance, and I can do it in a way where everyone's happy, then that's great. If I want to hold hands with a woman that I meet one time in Houston at that night, or just kiss her or whatever, I have that freedom because we've laid out all these rules to do it. To me, it's all about having the most pleasure and joy and happiness in life, but also doing it in an ethical way where we're trying to minimize the hurt from those around me at all times.
I think what you just said is extremely powerful, because the reality is that a shit ton of people cheat on their significant other. Most people that I know have either cheated or been cheated on, right? And so the fact that it's happening, the fact that polyamory is happening is a fact, but we cloak it, we lie about it, and that's where the hurt comes. If I tell somebody I'm just going to be with you and then I go cheat, I'm a piece of shit. If I say, hey, I love you, but if so-and-so wants to suck my dick, why am I going to say no? It feels fucking good. It doesn't take away any of the love that I have for you.
So you think that doesn't make you a piece of shit just by telling the person?
No, not at all. I think that me telling that person I'll never do it and then doing it behind their back.
Is worse.
That's worse. Way fucking worse. And that's what happens 99% of the time. Now, you've been married for how long, Steve?
We just got married on New Year's Eve. We've been together for 7 years. And this is my second marriage, but I've been like this for, 15 or 20 years. So I am very lucky that going into this relationship, I always told my wife this. Like I said, it's not the easiest thing for her. She's like she doesn't think this way. She understands that I'm this way, but I have shown her with time that I know how to conduct myself with respect and all of those things. I dated somebody for about 6 months before the pandemic and about 4 months into it. And then we just couldn't do it with the pandemic going on. And so that time, there were times when I would say, hey, I'm going to go to this person's house and I'm going to go hang out with her for the night. And sometimes she would be okay with it, but sometimes she would be sad about it. And I would, I told her, well, I'm sorry that you're sad about it. I'm going to still go. And I would come back and she would be sad. And then we would talk for an hour and then it would be okay. Because I told her, hey, I'm going to do my best to meet all your needs emotionally, physically, spiritually. I mean, we have a big part of non-monogamy polyamory is communication, verbal communication. And I'm down to talk for an hour and a half. I'm down to talk for as long as I'm very open in my heart and all these things. So to me, I'm telling her, hey, if you ever feel like I'm not taking care of you, then you have a right to be upset and we can fix that. But if I'm here for you 95% of the time and then sometimes I go out and have an experience with somebody else and come back and I'm still me, I'm not going anywhere. If you don't understand that or if you think that's unfair, then we can't be together. And it took us probably 6 years before I said, that was a big concern for me getting married is I was like, I don't want to get married if she's just agreeing to this because she loves me. And it's like really torturing her inside. So I think that last relationship was a thing where we figured out, hey, it might be uncomfortable for you, but you're not going to die. It's not true. I love you. I'm going to be here for you all the time.
Well, no. And then, but also, the fact that you're saying, hey, I'll be back. I'm going here. I think for the most part, people would rather hear that than, hey, honey, I'm going to go meet up with the guys at the bar. I'll be back. And then you're out there doing things behind their back. People think that that's what they have to do. Okay. I know plenty of dudes that are like bending over doing backflips to hide their affairs. And it's like, okay, I'm way too fucking old and I'm way too fucking tired to fucking do those kind of that kind of acrobatics to do what I want to do. This is crazy talk.
So I want to say I'm the only girl born female here on this little panel that we're talking about, right? So I'm going to be the different perspective. One, if you're way too old to hide things, you probably should be way too old to fuck around. And then two,
but it's not fucking around if you're honest about it.
Hang on.
Okay, no.
So guys, men, I feel like there's this thing, right? So I think you should do whatever you and your partner agree to. You guys are polyamorous or you're polyamorous. That's awesome. But I think the rub comes that usually, and I know people who are swingers. I know people who are polyamorous. I know, there's a certain sect of Americanized santeros that believe in having more than one wife. Okay. So, and I know a lot of Muslim people, but the rub always comes with this. I have a lot of guy friends. So the guys will always be like, I'm being honest. I shouldn't be fucking, tortured because I'm telling you straight up. I could lie and get away with it anyway. Perfect. You're being honest. But then when the girl goes out and does the exact same thing, like, okay, you know what? You're right. 95% of the time being happy is better than most relationships. But in order for me to be okay with this, I'm going to go out too. I'm going to go out because I feel like it'll help me not feel so shitty when you go out, right? Like, I'm going to explore what will make me happy so I'm not so dependent on you if you're going to be out. Then guys have a problem with that.
I think that you're the problem that I have with what you're saying is that you're blanketing guys and saying guys do this and don't let the girl do that. I think that I don't think that's fair. I think that there's a lot of women who are in that position where they say, hey, I'm married, but I'm going to go have a relationship with so-and-so as well, or I'm going to bring so-and-so into our relationship. I don't think that I think it goes both ways. I think that it shouldn't be a one-way street.
So the people who I've met who are polyamorous, I always know the guy. Right? Okay. It's never been a girl who's come to tell me I'm polyamorous. It's always been a guy. And I think it's because on a molecular scientific level, men do not operate on emotion as much as women. I think that women are very emotional, almost to the point of like a detriment, right? And I feel like guys can compartmentalize a little better. That's my experience with it.
I think that that's fair, but I think that there's a lot of emotional dudes. I know so many dudes who are more emotional than I've had friends. I have male friends where I've told, well, look, that's and that's, you know, I think that that's a quick judgment. I've had friends where I'm like, I've told Chiki, like, God damn, this guy's like way more needy than any chick I've ever been. Like, holy fuck, man, this guy is so neat, like so emotional. Like, and so I don't think, again, you're making blanket statements about men and women.
No. I'm making blanket statements about what I've experienced. This is not for everyone. In my experience, the people who I know, which I know more than, probably thinking about it now, I know more than 5 couples who are polyamorous, like right now, right? And the pandemic, that's funny that you said that. The pandemic did slow them down. Like it was we have to be safe, you know, we can't really go out kind of a thing. So it kind of stopped the person who was outside of the marriage. So it just was too hard to keep it up. But
yeah, I don't think, Thanya, I think that double standard is very real and it exists. I think that's a huge problem with polyamory. And I mean, that's true. That's a problem in life with men always domineering, always trying to take advantage of situations. I used to be like a bad poly guy with my ex-wife, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I was real shady and still tried to I was still on the hunt all the time and trying to get mine and everything. Even though I was being honest, I don't think I was being as aware and as loving as I could have been. I don't really, there are apps now that you can be more open with people, but I don't really try to date anybody because I don't think generally most people think like this. So I don't want to convince anybody. I don't want to talk anybody into it. But I talk in my comedy and all my podcasts about all this stuff. So I get people that come to me. And it is part of the reason why I do what I do in terms of Christianity, queerness, non-monogamy, is I want to get better. I want to meet more of my people because they're out there. But the only way I can meet them is to talk about this stuff all the time. But generally, I agree with you. Guys are kind of shitty like that. But that's not how I am with my wife. Like I said, my wife's monogamous.
I think it's personal, right? And you've already had one wife, you're on your second wife, people learn, right? Like, I think a lot of things are in Ifa. Ifa is like an oracle we believe in, and it says Ifa is experiences, life experiences. So if you get a sign that comes out in a reading, it's not so much the sign that you're living, you have to relate it back to when's the last time I had this and what did I learn, right? What did I learn from this? Like, I'm married. I can only deal with one husband. Like, it's already a struggle, right? To be with one person and the time and everything, it's so hard to just be good. I'm in a position in my life where I'm just trying to be good to one person because that's what I'm working on, right? But I mean, I don't knock anybody if you can do it. I just think that the people who I know personally, it's always been like, you get upset when the table turns and now you're upset.
Yes.
So I think that what happened was with sex and the way that we view it today, a lot of it has been programmed into us, like a lot of other things. We believe in that fairy tale love a lot of times where this one person is going to complete me and get me happiness and the romance and the this and the passion and all the crap that the movies have taught us. No, really. I mean, listen, there's a show called Love on the Spectrum on Netflix where you've got all these people with autism.
I've seen it.
And when they say things like, I didn't feel the spark. There wasn't this. It's all this shit that is not real, but that we believe in, is especially when you're immature and haven't dated enough. You're looking for that crazy thing. You believe that you have those butterflies. You're not butterflies. Your fucking hormones are firing off in ways because they're being stimulated, right? Mm-hmm. And we confuse that for love. And I think that's where a lot of the problem was. And we also associate sex with love. If you go back historically, you understand that sex was communal. When you go back to the hunter-gatherer days, the men all had sex with the women, and it was all different men, and the sperm that would impregnate that woman was literally survival of the fittest. It wasn't your sperm competing with your sperm. It was your sperm competing with other men's sperm, and therefore is how
giving you a side eye.
No. This isn't me saying this. This isn't me saying this. This is historical facts.
No,
the monogamy of it all started when agriculture and farming became a thing, and this dude said, I will provide for you and feed you, you will fuck me and only me. And that's when that became a thing. That's
all that for a fucking steak dinner.
Do you see what I'm saying?
But you're right, because the cult of Diana, they have communal sex, right? They, in the past, have had communal sex. So I think that, I think if you go back to, even like Abraham had a bunch of wives, like you go back and it's always, that's my whole point. It was always the men. And then when the men decided they were going to give me this farm because now we're sectioned off and I was going to get a steak if I fucked them and gave them 10 kids, again, it's the men.
So in Nepal, in areas up in the mountains out there, women are married to multiple men because the men then... They inherit. Because it has nothing to do with them being fair. But when a dude inherits a farm, and he marries somebody, then that person becomes their partner. But then if they have brothers, then those brothers are heirs to that farm as well. So if they get married, if that dude gets married, then it gets divided into now fourths, right? So what happens is these brothers will all marry the same woman and they'll have sex with her, but basically because it's out of convenience, right? But I think that now more women are being empowered to say, hey man, I want to be with women. I want to be with more than one man. I don't think it's as a one-way street where it's like the man is the only one that's being led by his desires. Women we've been conditioned in the past where women were doing their wifely duty. It's not that you like fucking, it's that this is your wifely duty. Do your chore for your man. That whole thing about holding sex back unless you take out the trash, otherwise you get no pussy. Like that shit is gone. Women want fucking dick just as much as guys want pussy, and I think that they're finally admitting it in today's day and age.
But I also think, and you can jump in here too, I also think that now everyone, there's been like a spiritual reawakening, right? And people are looking for spirituality. And I think especially in the pandemic, you couldn't go anywhere. And I think that a lot of people now are like, there's a lot of self-love things, and there's a lot of, I want to be happy first before I think fucking these 10 dudes is going to make me happy, or these 10 girls. And I do think that sex and love are usually combined, and that's not the case, because you can have sex with a bunch of people and not give a shit. Just same way that you can love someone and not have sex with them, and it can be a romantic kind of love. I'm fully cognizant of that you could be in love with someone and it's just at another level. But I feel like right now, spirituality is trendy, right? Get a crystal, throw the tarot cards. I'm a witch. Now it's cool, right? I'm not going to get burned at the stake right now. And it's very like, I love myself. Look at all the hashtags. Self-love, love me first, blah, blah, blah. And with that now, I think women are given the ability to, if I want to go out and hook up with this dude today, I'm not going to be a hoe. I'm not going to be called certain things. Like now it's more like.
There was a lot more slut shaming back in the day.
Yeah, I feel like now it's like, you go girl, you want to fuck that dude, knock yourself out. We're more concerned with like higher shit. Like how's your mental health? Like, what's going on there?
Hey man, listen, one of the number one songs was Bring a Bucket and a Mop.
Oh, wop.
So for this wet ass pussy.
Yeah, I mean, she's setting the bar high too, but okay.
I think we've been shamed into being we've turned being horny into shame, which is horrible. It's horrible for everybody's health.
But we turn sex into shame, right? It's so, I have people who are very close to me, who I love, who are gay, who are queer. It's so funny that you use the queer, because somebody who I love uses that too. And when she told me, I told her, I don't like that word. Like, I think it sounds so like derogatory. Don't say that. And she's like, well, that's the whole point. Like, I'm taking back that word. It used to be derogatory, but it's not anymore. I have power in the fact that I've taken it back. Like, this is what I am. I'm non-binary, I'm queer. So it's like, there were so many things that you were taught, like, oh, if your uncle's gay, don't go to that uncle, don't sit on his lap, he's gonna molest you. Now worry about the fucking priest. So there's so much knowledge now, and hopefully people are growing so much spiritually that we're seeing how asinine it is to judge somebody because, like you said, they like to get fucked in the ass. Who cares? That's what you like. You're not a shitty person. Knock yourself out. I would prefer to have you in my life getting fucked 5 ways to Tuesday, however you want, in your ear, in your nose, in your ass, and you not be a shitty person or some sicko molesting kids or whatever it is, than have you here pretending to be straight and then doing a bunch of fucked up shit.
And let me be clear too, as much as we've been talking about sex, to me, it's more about intimacy. I think, when I meet somebody, I want to be able to have whatever kind of relationship I'm going to have with that person. And that might include hand holding. It might include kissing. It might include us being really open and raw and honest with each other with no touching. But that would, in a typical marriage, infuriate my wife. That kind of thing, to know that I have a real deep and loving relationship with someone, regardless of the sex, it would infuriate them. A lot of women say, hey, I don't care if my man fucks anybody, but they better not fall in love with them. They have all these weird rules. To me, non-monogamy and polyamory is just, I don't want any of those rules. You do not have a right to tell me who I can and can't fall in love with. And to me, that is now, like I said, I am married because I do believe, and you were hitting on this, Martine, marriage up until this point, up until 50 to 150 years ago, was a business transaction. I do believe in many ways it still is a business transaction.
Who gives this woman in marriage? I do, to this man. Now he fucking owns her. That's when people tell me that it's a beautiful tradition, it's fucking horrible. I own this hoe. Now you own her. You take care of her.
This is why I didn't get married by a priest.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's what.
Anyway, and I wrote my own vows.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay. But I really do believe, with my wife, we got married because I said, listen, I love you to death. We get along well. We work together as a team. Let's come together under law, and we're going to try to make each other happy financially. All our money's involved. All of this stuff's involved. Our families are tied together now. I did all this stuff. I did not want to get married again. If you've ever been married and divorced, the idea of getting married again sounds awful. But I do understand that this is the way the world works, and this is how people conduct their lives in the world, so that I'm either going to be explaining it all the time, or my wife really, really wanted to get married. And to me, I was like, how long am I going to fight against this? I love this woman to death. Am I going to make some kind of philosophical point by resisting that? Or am I going to get married? And now, like I said, our families are tied together. There's a lot I love about it. I love that. I love that she's my sister's sister now. My sister loves that. All my family are all regular people too. I'm the only freak. And so they like that too. And I like to think of her parents as my parents now. There's all these sweet things and are romantic like that too. But that to me has nothing to do with any of my other relationships. Like I said, I'm going to treat her and the people in my life with respect. And if I do that, I'm doing my end of the bargain. I know she'll be hurt sometimes, but that thing, the reason why she feels hurt is because of the world has taught her that all the things that Martine was talking about. I tell her, I love you. Anything. If something happened and you called me, I would rush right over here. But generally, that's not how life is. So I want her to be as happy as she can possibly be, and the same for myself as well. And I'll help you in whatever way you can. But I do believe too, Martine was talking about how we used to do. I do believe physiologically, when you're with somebody, after a while, your body starts having the electricity. It stops working like that. I do believe, and it might be a physiological thing, that all that stuff dies down. I can never give my wife another first kiss. And no. I don't want, she's only 34 years old. I want her to get a few more first kisses in her life. Some electric bullshit at the bar that I could never give her, where she feels super sexy and attracted to, and she kisses some person and she feels all that electricity. I can never give her that because our bodies are too used to each other. So I want her to live life fully and as exciting as possible, and that'll not include me sometimes, and I'm okay with that.
It's holding hands for the first time. When, you go back to being a teenager and you hold hands with your girlfriend and it's like this, oh my God, we held hands. Oh my God, I put my arm around her. Oh shit, I kissed her. Her hand was on my thigh. Holy shit. But the moment your dick gets sucked, hey man, the hold handing is good, but fucking come on. Fucking some more head, mija.
I'm done.
I'm telling you, a couple years ago, I went out with a girl to a concert, and I didn't know. I couldn't tell we were friends. I always had a crush on her. And then we went to a bar afterwards. We were drunk. And she put her hand on my leg, and that was one of the most electric feelings I ever had in my life. I'm telling you about it right now. A couple of years ago at a bar, some girl that I was in love with 15 years ago, I asked her on a date, and she's like, I just broke up with my ex, but I was in love with this girl. And she ended up getting married, and then she got a divorce a couple years ago. She came into the bar I was bartending at, and she was there, and her friend was there, and she was like, why didn't you guys ever get together? And I was like, I don't know. And her and I went and made out in the alley. And it was one of the most awesome things that happened to me, at least for 2 months. The feeling of this shit. I loved this chick 15 years ago. If I wasn't in this non-monogamous setup, I wouldn't have been able to experience any of that stuff. And I'm grateful, and I'm so happy. And I really felt alive during those times. To me, those are memories that I cherish that I wouldn't have had, or they would have been tainted with deception and shit if I wasn't in this setup.
I think that's a healthy way to live your life. I think that the transparency and the honesty, as long as that's there, and the acceptance by the person that you're with, and it goes both ways. I'm not just saying that, dudes. If there's a woman out there, there's the couple that I mentioned. I want to say that the woman initiated the triad, and they brought another woman into the relationship. They are a triad, but from what I understand, they bring other women into their bed, and it makes them happy. I think that as long as they're not lying, the line is where I have the problem with, and it happens so much. Most people judge monogamy by or measure it by the length of time. So for instance,
we've been together 15 years.
Well, so here's the thing. You could get into a relationship with somebody, be together for a year, right? Break up. You hook up with somebody 2 years later, you're together for 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. And you're in a monogamous relationship. You break up, then you're with somebody else for 7 months. You've been with 3 people in the length of 5 years, but you're monogamous. Somebody that's with 3 people in 2 weeks' time are considered poly or promiscuous. So it's the time measurement that we value for some reason. You're doing the same exact thing. You're waiting longer in it.
I also think that I understand what you're saying, like that feeling that you get, and you're like so thankful for being able to have that experience. And I'm just going to devil's advocate. I think that you would have to really speak to somebody who's on the other side. Like the way you talk about it, it's very romanticized, right? I had this crush on this girl. We made out. It was fucking awesome. We're in the alley, But then flip that and be his wife hearing this. So I think that it's hard to really say how it's very personal, right? How is it really affecting people? Because you can say, and when you say it, I'm like, oh, that's true. Like you only get one first kiss, right?
So,
and you
but back up to
crush.
what he said right before that. He said, she'll never be able to experience that first kiss with me again. So if she experiences it with somebody else, I want her to have that.
Correct.
That's
and I'll feel. I know what you're talking about. I would if my wife in 5 years wants to go on a date with a guy. I don't want to act like I'm perfect. There is the part of me that would be like sitting at home would be like, oh man, this is rough. But I don't. You have to keep asking yourself, why do I feel this way? What is this? Where is this coming from? And it has come from a lot of weird, gross teachings that we get from society that say, oh, I should be the only one. It's just being uncomfortable. Our society hates being uncomfortable so much. And it's like, that's the only way we grow in life is by embracing that uncomfortableness. Go on, Thanya.
Because you also said your wife doesn't practice. She's monogamous. She's not dating or trying. So
yes.
So I think that's the difference, right? Like you can say things. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Had circumstances been differently, and I wouldn't believe what I believe, like in my core beliefs, this sounds like the way to go, right? Like I can be happy. Then maybe I see my ex-boyfriend from 5 years ago. We make out. That was cool too. I'm not built that way, right? I thrive better in a monogamous relationship because I also feel like, this is going to sound really weird, but I also feel like I dedicate so much time to spirituality that there's only so much of me to go around.
And that's awesome because you're in a relationship with your religion.
Yeah, so that's how. Yeah,
correct.
I was gonna tell you a chair right now. That's how I feel. Like I feel like I'm dedicating so much time to learning, right? And my religion is very carnal. We do things, right? So I feel like I love my husband, and that's the only person who I could see myself loving. And I wouldn't want to add any more to it. Plus, I hate drama. So I wouldn't want to add, and I feel like if it works for you, you should do whatever works for you. But there's always one person who it's not going to work the same for, like you're very open to it. This is the way you've lived. The people who are getting people in their bed. I have a friend who did the exact same thing. They were swingers. They would get people and they ended up divorced because
But there's a lot of people that don't swing that end up divorced.
But the funny thing is the only reason why they got divorced, she was cool with everything, is she wanted to bring in a guy. And the guy was like, we're getting a divorce.
Yeah.
And she was like,
and I think that the older
and it
you
broke
get,
her heart. She
the
was
older
like,
you
what
get,
the
the two dicks and they're just fucking become nothing.
It don't matter.
It don't matter.
No, but she was super heartbroken. She's like, dude, we went to swingers clubs together. Like it was all okay until I fucking wanted another dude. I was like, well, there you go, girl. It's all about growth.
Yeah, that happens all the time. No, you said something earlier too. I love conversation. I love emotional relationships, and I love being intimate with other people. I love relationships. My wife doesn't. She has a couple of friends and stuff like that, but I love meeting new people. I love getting to know people. I have 3 podcasts. I love getting out. I bartend. I'm a stand-up. I love meeting people. So I am built differently where I really enjoy this kind of things. My wife absolutely does not even enjoy meeting regular new people. She's like, shut it down. I got what I need. This is fine. And so it's definitely not for everybody. But this is just one of those things that I do like to talk about. It is becoming more in vogue. People will be more open to this just because I do think there are a lot of people built this way. Society just hasn't allowed them to be this way up until this point. But
why do people cheat? So when you have that many people cheating, that is not, and they know me going out cheating can ruin me financially. It could destroy my family. It could destroy so many things, but I'm still like, the desire is so big. It's so much bigger than these consequences that I'm going to do it. Therefore, we've got people fighting natural instincts and urges. The minute that, and again, I'm not speaking for everybody, but when you start thinking about the number of relationships that fail because of infidelity, I want to say that's the number one reason for relationships failing is infidelity. When you have that many people cheating with the consequences that they might face, therefore we are fighting a natural instinct, and that's problematic.
I want to say that relationships, it has to be between cheating and financial. Like you said something that's so true. I think that my grandma, you know, God rest her soul, she used to always tell me, when you get married, the first time you get married is for love. The second time it's a business. So she would tell me that. So, you know, before I was married, I was engaged. And then when I got married to my husband, it was very clear to me that I had to see this person as my partner, not only in life, but business wise. Like, because now where all our businesses are merged, what are we going to do? Because this is the partner. This is the CEO of my company. What are we going to do? Even though
we're going to buy Dogecoin.
You and him, yes. You and him. So you do have to see it. I think the relationships that last the longest are partnerships, and you see it very black and white. Like my husband and I can sit down, and I'm very good with numbers, and I'll be like, okay, this is where we're at. This is where we need to be. And it's a business. This is what we're doing.
And I also do think that even for people who choose to be monogamous, like you, that this is something that we need to talk about. Monogamy is always the default when you go into a relationship. But if you and your husband are partners and he at some point wants to fuck somebody at work, he should be able to say, hey, listen, this is what I'm feeling right now. We've been together for so long. I don't necessarily want to do this, but I want to tell you this. And if you are adult enough to understand that all the things we're talking about make sense, and you go, okay, I get that you're feeling that. I'm not going to take that personal. Let's figure out some way to do that. This all makes your partnership stronger. So I really am with Martine on that. The romantic idea of one person being your everything, and then you being so crushed. To me, it's like such little kid shit. But I think it's I do think so many people operate on that level. And to me, I'm like, let's be true partners and grow up. If you want to, that might mean we have to have a threesome, or that might mean we have to do this. But we're going to figure it out because I want to last longer with you. I'd rather help you solve this problem than to have you dealing with this thing off on the side.
Bro, you need to start a cult because I'd join.
He would baptize them for you because he's really ready to baptize someone.
And I would be up there just being I'd be a deacon in your church, brother.
I would give you guys $1 in the little thing, but I'm not going to buy in because, and I do want to say that my husband works with mostly men. So I feel like if that shit happens, I'm going to have to call both of you and be like, remember that podcast? No, but I am very big on truth. Like my husband and I have had conversations where I've been like, look, if you ever want to be with someone else, if I ever want to be with someone else, I'm an adult, I'm a business person, I'm going to tell you. Because I think it's shitty to be lied to.
But and that's the thing. Look stupid.
Yeah, I think that's worse.
But it happens all the time. I've seen so many people cheat, and everybody knows except the person that they're with. And I've seen it over and over again, not just in one situation, in many situations. So it's happening. We're just not being honest about it happening. That's where I have the biggest problem with it. We're forcing ourselves into a situation. Not everybody, but a lot of people are forcing themselves into this. You make a commitment, therefore you got to sacrifice and you got to do this. Fuck that. The minute that I feel like I'm sacrificing something, I don't need to be there. Fuck no. Life is way too short to be a fucking martyr.
But I do think a lot of things are generational curses. Like you're brought up, I'm going to speak for myself. You're brought up, well, my mom never brought me up that way, but her mom brought her up that way. You're brought up Hispanic. You're brought up in the church. You're brought up to be scared. You're brought up to be a good wife. Your husband's shitty, stay with him.
Mm-hmm. You made a commitment.
You have another kid. Your husband's still shitty. Stay with him because you know what?
That's your cross to bear.
There's men who abuse kids, and you have a daughter, and you're going to go meet somebody, and he's going to abuse your kid. So you're scaring them into submission. And that husband can be shitty for 10, 12, 15 years. And maybe if you're lucky, you get out. But a lot of people, even in this day and age where we're so woke, still stay. It's shitty and they stay because you have these generational curses. No, you got married. We went to the church. You're married before God. You're not going to embarrass us. So don't start with your hippie shit about spirituality and fixing yourself. And don't start with your bruja shit. And stay in this fucked up relationship because Disney says that he's the prince and he kissed you. And now you guys are going to go back with the fucking dwarves and whatever. So I think that a lot of things are generational curses. And I talk about that a lot with people who come to get readings with me, who will be in really fucked up positions. And I'll be like, look, this is saying that you have to move on. And they're like, no, my family. These are generational curses. A curse doesn't mean you're going to turn into a frog. These curses are things that have been in your mindset for so long, you have to break them. This is not, there's so little tolerance for people who want to be happy. And you have to sit there and become a martyr, right? I'm going to be unhappy, but we're going to take that one picture at JCPenney on Christmas and, fuck it. There we could at least send out the Christmas card,
There's people that stay married because they have a mortgage. There's people that stay married because let's wait till these kids turn 18 and then let's go live our fucking life. There's people that stay in shitty, not just in relationships, but there's people that go to college, get a degree in a certain field, find themselves in this job where they're miserable, but I've invested so much time and money into it that I dare not do something else. I've already I'm this far invested, I might as well write it out. I don't prescribe to that doctrine. I don't live my life like that. Fortunately, I never have. I'll pull the plug on anything, not just a relationship or a business or a job or whatever the case may be. If it's not right, I'm fucking out. I don't have to sit here for another goddamn 10 years to figure that shit out. I might not have 10 years.
But that's a blessing, right? That's a blessing.
Well, it's a blessing, but it's something you have to learn to do. So I'm sure that was hard at first, Martine. I know I could think about all the different times in my life where a lot of people have to learn that you've got to pull the plug on things when they're not working anymore. But some people, it's easier for others. A lot of people are scared, and most people live their life based on routine. And so they don't think about this stuff. They're just trying to get by. We're monkeys, So we're just trying to fit in for the most part.
How many times do you think people aren't happy in their job, right? And they're so scared to leave. Like, I can't leave. And and when you break it down financially, you could probably make the same money doing maybe 2 part-time jobs, but you're going to figure it out, right? But you're so scared. And what are people going to say if I leave? Oh, you fucking don't have a job?
Fuck them.
Or your mental health. There's people who I know who have left, the finance industry because their mental health was off. And they've come to me because they know I'm a person who's spiritual. And they've been like, what do you think? Feel better. Don't let these people make you feel bad because you took a month, 2 months, 6 months to get your mental health right. Like, don't let these people stop you from being happy. Being happy is so hard, right? So, but we're so conditioned. Grow up, get a job, have a kid, get a mortgage, work.
And then when you're 60 and nothing works, then go live your life.
If you're lucky at 60.
That's why I think for a lot of people, the pandemic has been a blessing because it's allowed life to stop as we know it and us to reconsider what we want out of life and if that matches up with how we're living life. These jobs, a lot of people aren't going back to these low-paying jobs, and I'm sure the stimulus stuff has a lot to do with that, but that stimulus is only allowing them to take the time to really ask themselves, for the first time maybe in their life, what makes you happy? And can you take less pay to work closer from home? All of this bullshit like that. Trust me, my aunt and uncle passed. I mean, this has been a tragedy as well. But I'm very grateful for the time that it's given me to look inwards and to figure out how I want to live the rest of my life. And I think a lot of people are experiencing that as well.
Again, to quote Alan Watts again, but he said, figure out what makes you happy, then go do that. The money will come later. Like, if you start looking for money and then you think that you're going to find happiness, you're going to be fucked. It's the same thing. You can fail. Now, what was it? Jim Carrey, the fucking Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, Jim Carrey.
Yeah, when he said, my father was an electrician and then he found himself laid off and we were homeless. He wanted to be a stand-up comic, but he took the safe road and became a fucking electrician. When he found himself laid off and we found ourselves homeless, I learned a valuable lesson, and that's that you can fail at what you don't want to do, which is super fucking powerful.
Wow. I also think there's something to be said for people who sacrifice, right? I feel like I've had a regular job in the finance world for a long time. I do go to work and some days I'm like, get me the fuck out of here. But what happens? I'm trying to afford my son, who's my heir of everything, spiritually everything, the option to do whatever what's going to make you happy. And when I was going, to high school, it was a necessity that I go to college and get a degree. And I got a degree, and I've never used that degree. So if my son decides that he's going to start, a startup of doing, I don't know, fucking microphones and toilets, then I'm going to support him. Because sometimes it's not the degree, it's what really drives you. Maybe that's his thing. Maybe he wants to be, a stand-up comedian. I mean, definitely I'm going to suffer, but there's, so there's a lot of things to be said for happiness. I do think that once you try to do what makes you happy, other things do line up. You also cannot be an ass. Like, you should have a backup plan, right? Like, you cannot sit here and be like, oh, I'm going to sit here and something's going to fall from the sky. No, you have to put a plan together for whatever it is that you like so that it can get into motion. The universe provides, but you have to do your part.
Sure. Of course. Listen, it's been a phenomenal conversation. It was a pleasure to meet you, dude. We're gonna I mean, we could go on forever. You're truly a fascinating dude, man. Like, I'm glad I got to know you. And well, I mean, through wherever the hell we're doing right now. What is this, Skype? But we should definitely touch base. I'd like to keep in touch, man, because you seem like a super fucking cool dude and super insightful. Thank you for coming on here, Brujo 101, where we talk all things spirituality and everything else under the sun.
And polyamory and everything else.
Listen, I think that there's so many there's not just one road. There's so many roads, and you were able to, in a very intelligent way, explain your path, where I think there's a lot of people that, when they read your bio, they might say, fuck this crazy guy. But then when you start explaining in detail what your life is all about, it's truly fascinating. And I'm going to say inspiring. Like, it's fantastic that you could be that brutally honest with who you are. Most people hide behind so many different masks and titles that they don't even know who the hell they are. You are the exception to that, and for that, I think you've already succeeded in a far greater ways than most people that spend a lifetime thinking that they did. Again, thanks for coming on here, dude. Tell people where they could find you and anything that you want to plug.
Well, thank you so much. Those are very kind words, Martine. Great hanging out with you, Thanya and Martine. This was really fun. You can find me at Big Hern on Twitter, Hernia on Instagram. You can find all my shows and all my podcasts on that stuff. But great conversation. Can't wait to get to know you two more.
Thank you. It was insightful. If I decide to get into polyamory, I'll look to you for instructions.
Maybe we'll Eiffel Tower you.
Oh, nice.
Oh, no. Don't say that, Martine.
Do you see?
I'm joking.
So toxic.
And I'll tell you what.
With prayer.
It's one of the worst things about it, because I love to be friends with women. Granted, generally, I would like to have sex with them too, but I'm very okay with just being friends with women. But they all think, if I'm like, hey, you want to go for a walk or something, they all think I'm trying to fuck. And I'm like, come on, let's get over this old shit. Martine, stop saying that.
Toxic. Very toxic.
I'm joking. Like I said, I'm sarcastic a lot of the times.
There's people Googling right now what that means. Ow.
Eiffel Tower?
Yeah. There's people. Please, you don't have to explain.
Praise God.
We're good. Hallelujah.
Thank you, dude. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your week. Everybody that's tuning in, thank you so much. Hit us with a rate and review. Share with your friends, and keep coming back. It works if you work it.
Oh my gosh, we're like 12-stepping them. See you guys later.